Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the Be Fierce and Try podcast. I'm Jill Bartholomew, and I'm here today with recurring guest Troy Theodosiou. It's been a while, Troy, since you've been on, so thank you for making time. And do you want to tell us for a minute, what you've been up to since we last heard from you?
Oh man, yeah, it's great to be here, and I've missed you, and it's really good to
Aw.
see your face. And I've been doing a little bit of racing myself, being able to get back into it, which has been great. And yeah, just really excited for this episode to discuss some pretty relevant stuff.
Yeah, and last week we talked about Lake Placid, and I met with Thomas from Merge Multisport. We've done a few episodes now together, and kind of did a race recap. So kind of off of that, I had a couple topics today. So I think today's agenda is going to look like. So first, we talk a lot about races, but let's talk about what goes into preparing for the race. Because like the race really is the celebration of all the preparation that you did for it. Right. And then let's skip through the race. We talked enough about that. And we're going to talk about, well, how do you recover from a race, especially like a full Ironman or a marathon, right? Which have very remarkably similar kind of effects on the body at race pace. And then, let's finish off with some training tips, and specifically, let's talk about training with others. We've talked a lot about training. I have a newsletter on LinkedIn that talks about, training for executives and like how to make more time in your life, but we haven't talked about how to be more effective in your training. So just getting started, like preparing for an endurance race, whether it's a marathon, a full Ironman, or depending on where you're starting from, it could even be your first 5K. Right.
100%.
So obviously it starts with training, right?
Yeah, I think Jill, so importantly, like right off the bat, the first thing that we have to do is set like a realistic timeline. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the fundamental starting point, is setting a realistic timeline in terms of if you want to do it properly, and you want to go about it the right way, make sure that you've got that side of the business taken care of.
You're absolutely spot on with that. As a coach and a friend and a frequent stalker of Facebook pages, I'm in a lot of Facebook race groups. I've been doing this for a long time, and we've talked about it before. I'm like as deep or deeper in the Run Disney universe as I am in like the triathlon and Ironman universe.
Yeah.
And they're both absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
And there's like a lot of stark similarities between the two, and the people who are listening are laughing, especially if you're an Ironman. You're like, I've run Disney. 26.2 miles at Disney is still 26.2 miles. They're a little bit more magical, but they're still 26.2 whole miles. But in both, we see people who are like not really, you know, avid athletes. They maybe are casual, maybe weekend warriors. Probably a lot of times don't have like a training plan. They've been following, like maybe they go out on some group runs, or maybe they go out on their own when they get a chance to, but nothing like really directed. And then you see it all the time, especially with fulls, because it's obviously like a bucket list item for a lot of people, right? Is it's like they wake up and suddenly like, I'm going to do a full, and I'm going to do that one, and then they find out it's like 60 days from now. I saw a post somewhere recently of someone who wanted to do a full. Actually, I think it might have been Lake Placid. It was Lake Placid. And she decided, it was a she, which I think is more unusual, had decided like literally 60 days before the race that she was going to do that race. Trained like heck for 60 days. And you and I both know there's not a ton of fitness you're going to develop in 60 days.
No.
You get some,
Sure.
but you're not going to like make really material changes in just 60 days.
And there's very little time to do any testing. There's very little time to simulate any of the
Right. And
necessities.
not to mention, you're going to show up to the race like on tired legs, on a tired body, because, in 60 days, you're not going to take 25% of that just to go taper. Right. So anyways, she did all right in the swim, DNF'd on the bike. Right. And, I read her story and it was like really inspiring, but it also was like, honey, I wish you had decided you were going to do Lake Placid next year, which would give you 14 months to train instead of just 2. You probably would have crossed the finish line with 14 months of training. So I think, like, to your point, having realistic goals, right? If you're training for your first 5K or your first Ironman or your next Ironman, like, it all depends on like where your fitness is.
100%. That is exactly what I was going to say, is where am I at now and where do I need to be? Where do I need to be? And that's very dependent on what the goal is and what it is you're setting out to achieve.
And you said it right there. It's like, what's your goal? When I get a new athlete, one of the first questions I ask them is, I'm like, because a lot of times it's like, I want to do my first 70.3, my first Olympic, my first full. And the question that I ask is like, what's your goal? Right? Is your goal to podium, or is it to finish, or is it somewhere in between? And like most people would be like, well, I'm not going to podium. I'd like to finish and not be the last one across the finish line. Right. But yeah, I mean, those are 2 very different training plans.
And I think what's super, super interesting and something that you'll be hyper aware of, just with regards to executives, yourself being one of them, the amount of time required that you need to put into the preparation is something that I think is an afterthought. And for those who can't necessarily afford a coach, the best advice I could give you is to potentially reverse engineer from race day what that's going to look like in terms of what is required to prepare you and get you to race day.
So let's kind of dive into that a little bit. You're right. Like, I think I saw a statistic not that long ago that somewhere between like 8 and 11% of athletes in these types of endurance and ultra endurance sports have coaches. Unsurprisingly, the top 8% all have coaches. So there is definitely a correlation there. But a lot of people, especially the first time around, don't hire a coach, because let's face it, coaches, especially good coaches, are not cheap. They can run between a couple $100 a month to upwards of $1,000, right? Depending on who they are, what they're doing, what sports you're involved with, blah, blah, blah. So, I've seen people like look to ChatGPT, right? These generative AI tools are the latest thing. But it makes sense. Like, you're laughing a little bit.
I am, because I'm just thinking about ChatGPT and how many finish lines ChatGPT has crossed from a credential standpoint.
Well, and at this point, the reality is that ChatGPT has not crossed any finish lines, nor will it ever, hopefully. But people using ChatGPT have, and they will continue to. But I've seen, if you're curious, like, go to ChatGPT, tell it what race you're going to race for, and what your goal is, and see what it comes out with. It needs a little work. It's not there. It probably won't be too bad a couple of years from now. It's gonna get harder as coaches to compete against. But right now, like, I've seen some of what it generates, and it's like, you could do that. But what it lacks is the dynamic aspect to it. Right? Like, it's the same thing, right? You can sign up for, go to a lot of people go to Training Peaks and download some famous coaches workouts for whatever race. Right. But I mean, they're cost effective. Or go to like Triathlon and sign up for one of their plans, which is a little more dynamic, but you still miss that, like, nutrition advice and pacing advice, and the help getting in the headspace, and finding the time is a big one. Like, a lot of athletes, especially when they first start training, struggle with how to find the time. It's like, I don't know how much time you train a week. I know you're still kind of new into a new job, but like, I'm 2 weeks off of Lake Placid, right? My training plan this week was 17 hours, and next week is 20. Right? I'm like, that's going into Kona. So, and we're trying to not be terrible at Kona. So that's not normal. But I mean, for a full IM, I mean, you gotta kind of figure out how to fit in, like, probably on average 12.
And Jill, your goals are obviously very specific with regards to what it is you're looking to achieve, right? Like, those goals are not the norm. And I think it's important for people to understand, like, what you're putting in, there's this very specific outcome that you desire. Now, for somebody who's looking to just partake and just complete. That would
Yeah,
obviously look very different to your type of training and your expenditure. But by the same token, it still requires you to plan accordingly. And
it does.
it's not the type of event that you can afford to. It's not like, oh, I just missed going to the gym for half an hour.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, you're not in a position to skip workouts, because you will pay the price come race day.
Yeah, and, the further out you are, kinda the less effect a single workout's gonna have. Kinda, I think the general advice right now is, like, if you miss a workout, don't worry about it.
Hmm.
But if you miss 10, we have to figure out why you're missing the workouts, right? It's like the other day, 2 days ago, I got in the pool for an hour and 15 minutes. It's like 4,000, yard swim. Got about 600 yards in and the whistle blows. Sky opened up, lightning. We live in
Weather.
Pennsylvania. If there's thunder, they pull people out for basically an hour. So, that swim didn't happen. Had zero benefit for me. But, there's 3 other swims this week, so that one on its own isn't gonna make a big difference.
And that's actually something that I stress, is the importance of discipline over motivation.
Mhm.
Because in the long run, that's what really separates you from being successful and achieving those goals, and you're not.
Yeah, and, like, being realistic about your goal. I have 2 athletes I'm thinking of in particular, actually all of them, but 2 specific ones. One did his first 70.3 recently at Musselman. He crushed it, absolutely crushed it, but we only had, I think, 90 days to work together on this.
Oh, wow.
He had another coach, and, he recognized he wasn't making the progress he needed to achieve his goal, because his goal was to not just finish, but in his words, he wanted to finish strong in the middle of the pack. I'm like, that's a reasonable goal, right? It's kind of non-specific on the time part, but as we got into it, we started looking at like what people did last year and the last 3 years, and started saying, okay, well, like we can probably get you across in this range. Um, and then he credited afterwards. He's like, if he hadn't have made that change, he might not have crossed the finish line, because the difference in a structured plan that was tailored for him and for the course that he was planning to do was really important to his success, and
100%.
getting the feedback. Like, he wasn't getting the feedback before. And some of it's like right down to like nutrition advice, right? It's like, hey man, it's going to be hot out there. Drink some water. Maybe throw in some electrolytes. I mean, I think we were a little bit more specific than that. But yeah, another one, it wasn't a chat GPT. He took a spreadsheet and kind of said, well, I'm going to do a long ride on this day. And I'm like, okay, that's a good start. But for each workout, you need to have a goal. It's like the goal of a long ride is not the long ride itself. Like, nobody but you and your bicycle cares that you did 100 miles, right? Maybe your family does because you didn't get to see them all day. But like, what's the goal? Is the goal to get yourself, seat time? Is it to do a race simulation at a specific zone? Is it, to get you, practicing your nutrition strategy? Is it something else? It's like, always have a goal and know what the goal is of that workout.
And you're not wrong, because the goal could be multifaceted. And Jill, you specifically mentioned like time in the saddle time. I
Yeah.
think that has to be the number one thing that people neglect the most.
Mm.
You mentioned this individual with 60 days decided to do Ironman Lake Placid. You, of all people, know what that bike course requires of and from you. Now, I can tell you, if saddle time was not something that was properly implemented, you are likely to DNF.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if the course is flat, I mean, you still need the saddle time. Like, and maybe you can get away without doing the whole thing. It's like, marathons. A lot of marathon plans never have you actually running a full marathon until the day of the event, and I think that's generally okay for marathons. You miss that maybe last 5K of load on your legs, but what's the worst case in a marathon? Maybe you miss a time goal, or maybe you end up slowing down that last 5K. On a bike, the worst case is you die. Right? So like getting that seat time in is, I think, really important. And in like a race like Lake Placid or any equally hilly race, right? There's so many that come to mind that are on the circuits that are very hilly. So much can go wrong. And knowing how to deal with it when you're there in the moment, tired, on tired legs and hot and sweaty and uncomfortable, like, is really, really an important skill to develop, especially
Yeah.
when you're starting to do these endurance things.
And it can be incredibly uncomfortable. I mean, let's call a spade with regards to being on a saddle for several hours. Not only are you going to struggle to walk, but if you haven't done that, there's chafe, which can be excruciating.
Let's talk about chafing. Oh
I
my God.
mean, if you really want to get granular, I mean, again, there's a right way to do things and a wrong way. And one thing that I want to highlight here, because the first thing that comes to mind is, you'll more often than not, you'll read a story or you'll see something on social media about an individual who brags about the fact that they only they only train for 1 hour a day and they did X, or
Yeah.
we're seeing a lot more of that nowadays. You're not a hero
Well,
by being
look,
able to do that. And the part that,
social media is one-sided,
oh my
right?
gosh, it's
It's
it's an
only,
exception to the norm. And here's the
yeah,
problem with that, is that you never quite understand the backstory with regards to, the person was an ex, like, collegiate
yeah,
athlete. Like, there's always a backstory. So it's not
yeah,
like Joe
yeah,
Schmo got off the couch and decided to do an Ironman the next day and finished. Wow,
yeah. They forgot to
unbelievable.
tell right. They forgot to tell you that they recently retired from being a Navy SEAL.
Or an ex-Olympic athlete. I mean, for
Yeah,
goodness sake, there's a number of these where social media paints this picture, and I'm like, that is so far from the truth.
yeah.
It's no
I mean,
different to the person who's all jacked and says, yeah, I take whey protein. And it's like, oh, wow, those muscles grew overnight on your whey protein? Yeah,
yeah.
you must be a genetic anomaly.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, let's be real, right? Is it possible that you could decide, I'm going to do whatever endurance activity that you choose, whether it's a cycling event, run, whatever, swim, maybe push to the side because that I think is different. But
Very risky.
like,
Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, there is some percentage of people who probably could just do it and pull it off. But there's risks, right? I ran the Brooklyn half marathon a couple years ago, and it's a nice race. The starts in Prospect Park in Brooklyn, and then it runs out to Coney Island, and it finishes in the stadium out there. I'm like, okay, that's nice. And then you walk across the finish line and you get Nathan's hot dog. I mean, it's right on the boardwalk. It's like another 10 feet to Nathan's, and I may or may not have done that. So, anyways, that one's memorable to me because someone died at the finish line and he started near me and he finished near me. The reason why he died was not because he couldn't do it, because he obviously did. He crossed the finish line. And then he like literally took 2 steps and fell over and his heart stopped and he died. He was young. He was younger than me. And the reason he died was it was a very hot day. It was in New York. Everyone thinks the Northeast is cool. Yeah, we get a lot of heat too. And with that heat usually comes a ton of humidity. With both of those, come hydration needs, right? Like if your body is sweating, you need to replace it. Now, you don't need to replace it 1-to-1. That's not the recommended approach, but you need to put something in you. And he didn't. He ran past every aid station, didn't take any hydration, didn't take any nutrition. And he basically died of dehydration because once his heart rate fell, it tanked and he never recovered. So, like, is that a training issue? Maybe because he didn't know that he needed to do that. I don't know anything else about him. But, that's, our goal is to prevent that from happening. Now, swimming, I don't know. Swimming is a whole different activity. It's like, I think for most people, swimming is not drowning.
Yeah. For most.
Yeah, and like hopefully making forward momentum while actively not drowning.
Yeah. And just the fact that there are so many people around them. They're not in an isolated lane. You're in an open body
Yeah.
of water with hundreds of different athletes swimming on top of you. I mean, you yourself have taken
Oh, man.
taken some, a whack here and there and a kick here and there. And if you're anxious and not a confident swimmer to begin with, that can really derail your race.
It can and it will. I mean, you can't do an open water swim like that in a race where you have a lot of people around you and not eventually get a hand on you, an elbow in your side, an elbow in your face, pushed around, swum over, under, around, and like most of the time it's not intentional.
Yeah,
Right.
you'd
I
like
do.
to think
There
so.
have been a couple of times where I'm like, that person did that on purpose, right? But normally it's like, everyone's just doing their own thing and trying to get to the finish line or out of the water as quickly as possible. But yeah, I mean, I've come out of the water with black eyes. I've thought that my watch was gonna drown a few times. Actually, at Lake Placid, the twice I had my wrist grabbed, and I don't think it was like on purpose. I think people were just like doing their stroke, and it happened to hit my wrist. But there was one I actually thought my watch was gonna have an untimely death.
Oh man.
Yeah, I know Mirror Lake has a collection of watches on the bottom.
Oh, I bet. I bet. Jill, I think what's important for people to understand and not neglect is the fact that as a coach, you can speak into this with regards to the key training phases required for successfully and
Yeah,
preparing properly for an endurance event. And I think, I mean, you can elaborate on this, but base building, your specific endurance, and then your peak and your taper. And that doesn't your
yeah.
nutrition, your hydration, your fueling plan, that's all over and above.
That's why having like realistic, expectations and a good timeline. Yeah, I've recently been talking to a few athletes, some of who have signed up with me, which thank you if you're listening. Who they're talking about races that are 9 to 12 months away. And some are even like, well, I kind of want to do this race in 2027. And I'm like, that's fantastic because it does give us time to go through all three phases and have a taper. And like that base building, that foundational phase is so important because what do? You're working on the basics. You're getting the
100%.
reps in. Failure is okay. It's not the hardest thing in the world, but a lot of it is aerobic and building your aerobic capacity in the gym, building this strength so that you can do the other phases. As we get into, peak phase, like that's long and hard. But if you don't make your way through that foundational phase, that base building, long and hard is going to feel a lot longer and a lot harder, and you might not be able to do it, or you might be unhappy with the results.
And Jill, one of the things that really come to the forefront of my mind as we unpack this with regards to preparing for endurance events, I think the one thing that people neglect is mental preparation. Now, for
Mm,
somebody who's competed on different continents at the highest level, it doesn't matter whether you're preparing for your first local distance Olympic or whether you're preparing for the World Championships in Kona.
mm-mm.
Let's take a minute to highlight and unpack the importance of mental preparation that's required.
So you ever notice that? So you and I have both done a lot of races in our lifetime, in different sports. You ever notice that, like, let's take running for a second, 5K for experienced athletes who are doing longer distances. A 5K is like not a big deal. We probably do many 5Ks a week in our training. You ever notice in a race, 3.1 miles, 5 kilometers. Around mile marker 2, you start thinking in your head, are we done yet?
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a person who does 140 miles, and 3.5 kilometers into a 5-kilometer race, they're like, are we there yet? Are we done? You ever notice that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then in a 10K, it's like the same thing, right? 6.2 miles. At like mile 4, you're like, are we there yet? I'm done. Can
Yeah.
we be done? Are we there yet?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing in a half and a full. And like, pick your sport. Yeah, it is in a endurance swim, same thing. 1.2 miles. At like 900 yards, or at like 900 meters, you're like, are we done? Are we there yet? 0.9 miles. Are we there yet? So I think it is the mental thing, but also like when you're in that race headspace, you're like narrowly focused on the finish line. And like, for me at least, I get like 80% of the way there. And then I'm like, that last 20% is like mentally hard.
Yeah. And that's where the race is won or lost. And
Yeah.
that's why your training is so important, because you've mentally, it's not
Yeah.
just physical output. It's not just about putting in the miles.
Yeah.
And that's what people need to remember is like, hey, this is not just a physiological endeavor. Like the mental preparation is as if not more important than what you're doing from a physiological standpoint.
Yeah. As a coach, this is my only kind of like for marathon training. This is my only hesitation with not having athletes do the full distance before the race is like, from a physiological perspective, there's been a lot of studies on it. The vast majority of plans for a marathon have you running between 18 and 22 miles max, right? Very, very few of them have you actually doing the full 26.2 prior to race day. So like from a physical perspective, there's there's limited additional gains in that extra mileage unless you're an elite athlete, right? Then absolutely there is. But for an amateur, for an age grouper who's not podiuming and whose goal is to finish and finish strong, like the extra 5K, you're not getting, or the extra 10K, you're not getting a ton of extra benefit. But that mental component, there is
Feeling the
nothing like,
feels.
yeah. It's like, okay, mile 18 is when most people hit the wall.
Yeah. Your body will
Maybe,
give up way before your
yeah,
mind.
yeah. Maybe for you it's mile 16. Maybe it's mile 22. But then you've got those dark miles of like, okay, so you've hit the wall. You've diagnosed that the reason why you're bonking is you don't have enough carbs, or you are dehydrated, or maybe you're cramping a little bit. Usually within 2 miles, you've kind of solved it out and rebounded, right? Assuming you didn't get so down that it's like unrecoverable. But most people aren't going to let it go that far before they notice that, hey, I got to do something different. But then you've got like that 22 to 25. And those can be like the most exhilarating miles because you're like, yeah, I'm almost there. And they can also be like the darkest miles of like, oh my God, is it ever going to end?
And I think more often than not, it's the latter. It's what
Yeah.
you've just mentioned. And I think that is where your ability to overcome those obstacles, those mental blocks, those mental challenges, because it's still expending energy.
Yeah, and like Lake Placid for me on the bike, I was way under. My nutrition was off on the bike, and it caught up to me right around the 2 hour mark, which was, I was going at a good clip the first 2 hours. It was like right around mile 45. I can see it in my metrics when things started to go. And like there was a dramatic change. I was putting out like 50% of the power that I normally would be putting out. And once I recovered from it, I never made it back to 100% of what I should have been, but I made it to like 70, right? And, it affected me on the run. Same thing. The run, I made it to like 70% of what I should have been doing. or would have expected to. So there is an effect, but like the dark hours from 45 to 85 or 80 or whenever it was I hit that aid station that I just like started gobbling down the Martin bars was like you're in your head and you're like, why do I hurt so bad? Why does this feel so hard? This shouldn't feel this hard. Like, I've done a number of these, but you're on the bike and you can say like, oh, I've done centuries before and it didn't feel this bad. I've done more elevation before and it didn't feel this bad. It's like if that's the first time you've done a century in a race, then you won't have that experience and you're like, this is normal. But if you've done a few of them, if you did a few centuries in training, if you did a race sim, then like in addition to that seat time, you also know how your body feels. It's like 80 miles in for most people, your body's not going to feel great.
Jill, your ability to wrestle with those emotions, it's raw. In the heat of the moment, like
at some
you've got to unpack and process because you still know, like, and you of all people, having just lived this, like, hey, I'm better than this. I shouldn't be feeling this way. You're in a hole and only you can get you out.
Yeah. And like, that's where training comes in, right? It's like, first identify the ability to identify like, okay, well, why do I feel this way? This isn't normal, right? Because the first time you do it, you don't know what's normal, right? The second time you do it, you at least have another data point to compare to. And then the third time, by the time you've done it 3 times, you're like, all right, this isn't normal, right? And like in my lead up to Lake Placid this year, I think I've done 9 centuries so far this year. So like I have a pretty good idea of how my body should feel at mile 80, right? And there's people listening who are like, Pisha, I've done 40. I'm like, okay, that I didn't this year, but it's like the more experience you get, the more data points you have to compare to, and the more you can kind of self-address like what's going on. So in that preparation, okay, so you got the training, we've beat that to death. You got to train smart, give yourself enough time to prepare for the race that you want to do. And the more prepared you are, the better the outcome.
And set realistic goals.
Yeah, set realistic goals. So this is one that always fascinates me. The race. How early do you get to the race? Let's say you're doing a standalone marathon. When would you show up? Assuming it's not like within driving distance.
I think that has a lot to do with your personality. If you're quite an anxious person, the last thing you want to do is arrive too late, because that does you no good. I think that's very dependent on your personality, how you cope with stressful situations, because that can also evoke an unfavorable result. If you're somebody who doesn't cope well under pressure or has high anxiety, you want to arrive there early. I'm the type of guy that likes to be very relaxed, very chilled. I don't want to be flustered. That does me no good. I like to be extremely prepared. I like to be very relaxed, very dialed in, very in tune. And I think I would not thrive in an environment where.
So could I, listening to you, I think we think a lot alike on this one. It's like control what you can control.
100%.
And you can control your stress level, your anxiety level.
Yeah.
To a point.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's always race day nerves.
Yeah, but those are good.
Yeah. Versus like feeling like, oh man, I just flew in and I'm still jet lagged. And
no.
So for a full IM, so most are on Saturday or Sunday. Actually, I think they're all on Saturday or Sunday. When do you show up? Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday?
No, ideally you want to be there by midweek latest. You want to get acclimated. You want to be relaxed. You want to be hyper familiar with your surroundings. Jill, we've spoken about this before. When you don't allow for the uncontrollables, delays with your bike, damages to your luggage, or kit not arriving, how often? I mean, we've seen pro athletes the day before event, they don't have a race suit. And that's something that's might not be make
We
or
saw
break.
last year, the day before, 2 days before the event, she put on her wetsuit, bent over, and it just like split right
Yeah.
down the rear end.
Yeah.
It's like, can you imagine the panic that she had of this, wetsuit that she's trained in, she's very familiar with, it fits her like a glove, and now it's not good.
Same applies to
It's
somebody
my
who's, like with shoes, your marathon shoes. Jill, you used to training in a, let's just say you're in a strange
You hear about the
spot.
story where my carbon plated marathon shoes, this was at, I think, Dopey maybe earlier this year. My carbon plated marathon shoes I used in the 5K, at the plate in one of them broke in half. Yeah. Yeah.
Not ideal.
No, not ideal at all. Luckily, I had brought like a second set, but yeah, because that event, Dopey, it's a 5K, a 10K, a half, and a full on subsequent days. It's 48.6 miles over 4 days, and so it in itself isn't an ultra, but like the combined distance it's over 50K. Doing events like that are multi-day is a different skill in itself, because you have to learn how to recover and like train yourself to recover really fast from one event so you can show up the next day, especially if you're doing it at race pace, right? Like you can survive a 5K and then do a 10K, right? But can you race a 5K and then race a 10K? Yeah, so that was fantastic. But same thing, like, I think I posted something on social media that was like, I can confirm that racing in carbon fiber plates and plated shoes that have broken plates is like racing in really squishy socks.
Mm.
There's no support whatsoever.
Well, think about this, Jill. When you traveled to France last year, think about the time frame. Think about the preparedness in terms of like first time racing in France.
Yeah.
You've got to account for language barriers over and above just being in a new place, and then setting yourself up to be successful, and also making allowances for the things that are outside of your control.
Well, yeah. And you've got time zone. And when you travel, I was reading about this recently, it's really super common for everyone, not just athletes, to have gut issues for the first 48 to 72 hours. Plus, if you're staying in an unfamiliar place, you can add more. And, when you travel, the food is generally not as healthy that you're eating as what you would otherwise eat at home. Right. And like most athletes tend to pay more attention to what they put in their body. They may not have a better diet, but they're at least more aware of what they're eating than like someone who's not into sporting at all. So you've got that going for you, plus the unfamiliar surroundings and, da 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 da. So when I went to France, we got there, we left Philadelphia, I think it was on Sunday. And I think we landed on like Monday in the afternoon at some point. And, I actually had felt like we should have gone a day earlier.
Really?
Yeah. And I think a lot of people showed up on Tuesday. And I'm used to traveling to Europe, with, jobs I've had over the last 25 years. I spent a lot of time in Europe and Asia, but still, your body needs to adjust.
It does.
But yeah, I wish we had gone out a day before, because we would have been able to spend like some actual time sightseeing, where like being there on Monday afternoon, bike was assembled. I did my first shakeout ride Monday, and then, then it was into like shakeout training, events, and like World Championship has a lot of events. Like you could be like probably 18 hours a day. You could be going to something.
I was going to say, so this obviously changes the game for you with regards to Kona and Marbella because of
Yeah.
this experience.
Well, yeah, actually in Kona, I'm going out there the last week in September. Yeah.
So there's a learning. Why? Because there's experience.
Yeah.
This
Yes.
is exactly what we're referencing. Is like, if you prepare and you allow enough time, and you set realistic goals, there's less likelihood that things don't go according to plan.
That's experience. And so my experience alone, I was planning on going out. I think the race is on the 11th. So we were planning to go out the Saturday before the race. And so it would have had us out there like 8 days. and then come back on like the Tuesday after the race. Just like the timing of flights, back, they're all in the morning, and you've got the post race banquets and stuff. So like you need to add like an extra day.
There's more bicycles than human beings. The
Yeah.
airport it's a sight to behold. To see that number of bikes leaving Hawaii is it's unbelievable. Good
That is
grief.
one of the times where I'm very much in the get to the airport early,
Yes.
because I want to do everything I can to make sure that not just myself, but my bags and my bike are on the same plane I'm on. But I'm also grateful for the status I have on the airlines, which, help guarantee that too.
I was going to say there is a strong likelihood that is not the case for everybody, because the plane can only hold so many bikes.
Yeah.
Because of the size. So unfortunately, whether you like it or not, there will be some people that travel without their bikes.
There will be. And I think like if you're checking it with an airline, like knock on wood, you're gonna get it eventually. It might be on that flight the next day. I mean last year, when Tri-Bike Transport went out after was it after Kona or Cozumel? It was one of the fall races.
It was before.
Yeah, that was quite a gong show.
Air tags, folks. You have been warned.
I have 3 air tags in
There
my
you go.
bike box, and I'm not going to disclose where they are.
That's fine. I am the same way.
Yeah, because it's like Find My will show up, and I find Find My is great, except it needs to have someone that it pings off of.
Exactly.
So, anyways, showing up early. I think we're both saying the same thing. Is like find what you're comfortable with, but don't be like last minute. I saw at Lake Placid something I hadn't seen before at other races, or at least not to the same degree. The village on the first day of pack and pickup was actually quiet. Usually that
buzz.
first day is like hopping. It was Friday. That was a buzz. Even Saturday morning, people were showing up and picking.
People pushing it.
Lake Placid had like very limited hours.
Mm-hmm.
On Saturday, the day before the race, to pick up. I think it was only open for like 2 or 3 hours, because you had to have your bike racked by 3 or 4 p.m. And I'm like, I couldn't imagine showing up to a full Ironman the morning of the day before the race.
You'll be surprised how many people show up and their bike hasn't been
I
serviced in several months.
well
I
that
could share a few stories, but
I bet. Well, that was the thing, was I'm like, it gives you no time to do anything, like no acclimation. And if there's an equipment problem,
oh my
you're
gosh.
you're in a really bad spot. Like I had a friend who's had a derailleur hanger that
Yeah.
broke.
More often than not.
Yeah. And like, okay, so if you're there 3 days before, you can probably get a derailleur hanger.
Depending on how old your bike is. If it's
Well,
ancient, you're gonna struggle.
Yeah. But I mean, for most people, you should be able to get a derailleur hanger in 2 or 3 days, right?
That's
And
fair.
Lake Placid, and most of the places that these races are in have a couple of like really solid bike shops.
For sure.
Yeah. I carry a spare hanger
Me
with
too.
me for that reason.
Yeah.
And actually, when I travel, when my tri-bike goes in the bike box, the rear derailleur goes in my carry-on.
Yeah. Well played.
My chain
Smart.
comes off, and I bring an extra set of quick links, the chain tool, the quick link tool. And I've seen people find ways to jury rig a quick tool out of an Allen key, but just bring the tool. It costs like $4.
Well, here's the problem with the bent hanger is if there isn't time to get a new one and it has to be straightened, there is a possibility that it snaps.
So we recently, so John and I had posted something on Instagram a month ago that something big is happening for Be Fierce Multisport. And maybe now's a good time to talk about that. So Be Fierce Multisport has always had a multi-prong approach over the next 3 years. So phase 1 was like creating the coaching business. And part of that was this podcast. We're like, hey, this could be fun. And it is. And I'm so excited that like so far, like 60,000 people have decided that they like what we have to say. So phase 2 is we're opening a physical brick and mortar location. And as part of that, we're going to be hopefully selling, but more to the point, servicing bikes. And the business model is that it's more like triathlete focused, and it will expand. So as we get towards the fall, I'm expecting to start to offer virtual cycling classes. So trying to create a more social space for triathletes and cyclists over the winter, where most of us stop training. And so we recently have been taking, the park tool classes, which have been interesting because obviously we've been around bikes a long time. I've been on a bike competitively on and off since 1997. So yeah, okay. So they ended up, the shop that was doing the classes with us said, okay, what don't you know?
Well, there you go.
And we went through the, they have this big manual. And so we went through that and we're like, this, and this. So we went down to this shop so big shout out to Scott, who was working with us at, I'm going to mispronounce it. It's in Catoctin, Maryland. So we're talking through it, and the moral story is we did this big long class, and one of the things that we were talking about was specifically derailleur hangers.
Nice.
So he was telling us in his experience, because he was kind of similar situation where he left a corporate job and opened this bike shop. It's like, hey, you get tired of corporate, what do? You open a bike shop. And he was saying, yeah, people will come in the shop with a bent hanger. They were actually out riding and they couldn't shift and they rode to the shop. And he's like, more often than not, when they try to bend it back, it pops. I'm like, yeah. Because I've had that on my own bike. And I ride Treks mostly. And the derailleur hangers are probably about a 1/4 inch these days, kind of like a 1/4 inch thick, whether it's a SRAM or Shimano, they're really similar. Kind of like a 1/4 inch thick piece of pot metal. And they're made to break. That's their job, right?
Moral of the story, Jill?
Yeah, the brakes. I've had my own hanger, you look at it and it's bent a little bit and shoot, there's a hairline crack in it. But
Folks.
you got to be always looking at your equipment too.
Yeah. Servicing, carry a spare.
Yeah, servicing, carry a spare. And, now it's nice because, most of the brands are starting to standardize, at least within the brand.
Yeah.
So, I have a Madone. I do most of my training on a Madone because, it's more friendly for group riding. Most groups don't appreciate when people show up on tri bikes.
No.
But, and I race on a speed concept. Well, they use the same derailleur hanger. So
there you go.
it's not, so we got a little stash of those, but yeah. Anyways, yeah. So moral of the story is my rear derailleur comes off whenever I travel, and it goes in my bag along with my chain, which is TSA allowed. I actually didn't think about that. I'm like, a chain could be a weapon.
Oh, good grief.
But
I never thought of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, come on. There was a while where you couldn't bring knitting needles.
Yeah. Well, when in doubt, phone Jill. When in doubt, phone Jill. She's got your back.
Well, and those TSA lists, when they change all the time. So when you're traveling, when you're packing up your bike, check it because things change. The chain is, you can bring it on the plane today. You might not be able to after someone from TSA listens to this podcast and says it could be used as a weapon. So Troy, I think we should talk a little bit about recovery.
You took the words out of my mouth because here we are talking about you in Placid, and one of the things that we haven't discussed is the recovery.
Before we talk about me, let's talk about you. Before we started the show today, you were telling me about an Olympic you recently did, and you did not do what we started the last 46 minutes of this podcast on. You didn't train for it. You, and I quote, had no business doing it, but you did it because someone that you met and cared about and was part of your why had recently passed away. So it was important for you to do that event even though you were undertrained for it.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, ignoring the lack of training. So you showed up, you did it, you had fun. I saw the pictures, so don't even lie that you didn't have fun. Tell me about how you felt afterwards.
Yeah, there was definitely some aches and pains, just with regards to the fact that it when we control the controllables,
Mm,
the outcome is normally different. Um, but I think just like the recovery is so important, right? Like even if your preparation isn't on point, and I think a lot of the time it isn't. But more importantly, when it isn't on point and it hasn't gone quite according to plan, or you didn't put in the necessary time required, I think that's where recovery is super important. And the fact that I've trained this week, and the fact that I've been active and I've been very diligent with
mm,
regards to my nutrition and my hydration means that I'm in a really good spot. And I think so often if that is neglected, and we'll talk about the mental and the emotional sort of come down post race, whether you call it the blues or whatever you refer to it as. It's real.
Post-race blues are real.
They are real, and folks, like that is not symbolic of an Ironman.
No.
That's across the board.
But kudos to Ironman for capitalizing on it.
Yeah,
They're really they're really good at that. Like within moments of you crossing the finish line, you get the email of sign up for next year.
yeah. Well, I mean, again, that's the marketing piece of the puzzle, but
Mhm.
but the real the real life thing is like you've done something great, whether it's the first time or the 100th time. The fact of the matter is like there's this emotional switch that you're not always prepared for, right? Because you've put in all this time, you've put in all this training, you've got the medal. The result with it was either what you desired or it wasn't. But regardless, there's a there's an emotional response and a psychological response that you have to be prepared for.
Yeah, it's a lot like it's a lot like what, a new mom experiences after the baby shows up, right? It's like the last 9 months have been about planning for this baby, or after a wedding or any other big event in your life. It's like you spent all this time and energy and emotional energy and investment in this thing, and now it's over. Now, so you're like, okay, well, what?
And Jill, to answer your question, like my biggest focus this week has been sleep quality. My sleep
Hmm.
quality has been a massive focal point for me because that obviously is huge when it comes to recovering. Refueling,
Hmm.
my hydration and my electrolytes, and then my nutrition in terms of like what am I consuming? Because it's easy to be dialed in, um, you know, leading up into race week, and then race day happens, and it's like, oh, like I'm relaxed. I'll eat whatever I want, and that's a huge mistake.
So did you give yourself the cheat day?
Oh, I mean, post race, I think the first thing I consumed was an Oreo McFlurry, which went down super well.
I bet that
It
went down fast.
it went down super fast, and I don't know if this is just a Troy thing or Jill, if you can relate. Things that you have had prior to post race always taste so much better. Is that just a Troy thing, or can you relate?
No, it's everyone.
Yeah.
My traditional post endurance race meal is a slab of meat. Yeah, like when John and I first started dating and he first started like following me to races, I think the first race, maybe the first race he traveled with me to was the San Francisco Marathon. And then Montreal was next. And after Montreal, he's like, so I'm gathering that shortly after the race, we go out and we have steak. I said, yes, yes, we do. Every
Nice.
single time.
He knows the drill.
He knows the drill. He
There
knows
you
the drill.
go.
Yeah.
And Jill, something else, now that you asked me the question, something else that I've learned over time is not allowing myself some time to recover and not being
Mhm.
too eager to jump right back in and go
Yeah.
full steam. I think a lot of the time, the more experienced you are, the more you seem to think that it's okay just to dive right back in. I think that's a mistake.
Yeah. I fall in that trap sometimes
Mm-hmm.
because, like, when you've done it for a while and done a lot of them, you know how to recover and your body recovers faster.
Mm-hmm.
And when your body recovers quickly and you start feeling good pretty quick, you're kind of still riding that like post-race high
Yes.
and you're feeling good and you're like, yeah, let's go do something hard, and it's too early.
Let me add another one to our list, because here's where Jill and I are both guilty as charged. What about in our recovery process? Wait for it. Are you ready? Ignoring niggles and signs that you know are there. That you are just like, yeah, I know it's there, but I'm going to carry on
Yeah,
anyway. Jill, let's be real for a second. More often than not, and I'm going to hand this one back to you.
man. I was better this time.
Okay.
My training plan, kind of jumped right back into training and, just at a reduced, kind of similar volume at a reduced intensity, which is really common, right? Is like you want to get back and moving and like your volume might not go down tremendously, but your intensity should go down like a lot. And then it builds back up over a period of weeks, not days. And after Lake Placid, I was so beat up after that rate. I've never been so beat up, and it wasn't the course. And I've done that course before, and it was the nutrition, right? Like my muscles were like they were beat up. And it was the first time I said to my coach, I'm like, I'm ignoring the training plan for the next 3 days,
Well played. Good for
and
you.
I didn't do anything. I mean, I did. I went out on like easy rides with my kids.
Yeah.
I did not run.
Yeah.
I went out for a swim. I did an open water thing. But I did nothing on the plan.
And look at
Like,
you now. As a result of those actions and you being intentional about the fact that, hey, I'm beat up, like I still need to move, but
mhm,
I'm going to take my foot off the gas.
yeah,
And being okay with that, Joel, the most valuable advice I got this week, just yesterday, was being more graceful with ourselves.
yeah. I get that advice.
And it's so hard. It's so easy to practice that. It's so easy to preach it, but to practice it, excuse me, is a whole different story. And here I am on a phone call, and I'm like, you telling me what I tell everybody else. And then when it comes to myself, that air
Yeah.
of grace, like, hey, take a step back, it's so much easier said than done.
So it is. And I've been really bad at that. I continue to be bad at that. And I'll say this, over the last year, my social circle has expanded quite a bit. That's one of the things that I love about these types of sports, whether it's marathons or triathlons or something else, is especially within the age group ranks of these sports that tend to be a little on the smaller side and more tightly knit, is like people can be super supportive of each other, even people that they compete directly with. And like, it's one of the things I love about triathlon. You even see it within the pro ranks.
And that's our
Is like,
relationship. That's our
yeah,
that's us. We living proof of that.
yes, I've had people this year be like, because I'll beat myself up over something. It's like I know I'm capable of this, and I'm not performing at the level that I'm expecting of myself. And I've had a couple people be like, just give yourself the grace to recover and acknowledge that you did something that most people will never do. Then you can beat yourself up later. But like, have the grace to like be happy.
Yeah.
And it does make a difference, right? And hearing someone else tell you that. Meanwhile, as the coach, I'm saying to my athletes all the time, I'm like, yeah, you missed the mark by a couple of minutes. It's like it's not the end of the world. There will be next time, you know?
And the other thing that I want to highlight, Joel, and I think this will resonate so deeply with you as it has with me this week, is allowing ourselves the ability to celebrate the win. Because we're so focused on raising the bar and what's next
Yeah.
that we forget about what has just been accomplished and achieved. Guilty as charged. I mention this because I'm not
Yeah.
being transparent and vulnerable about some of these struggles, because it's so easy for us to forget about like what we've just done what we've just accomplished, doesn't matter how big or how small, the fact of the matter is those wins, those gains are there to be celebrated. And when you ignore them, it's counterproductive because you're so focused on what's next, you don't get to appreciate and live in the moment that you're in.
Yeah. Yeah, you also have to be a little bit careful. Like we can beat ourselves up all we want. And to some degree, like it's normal, it's healthy. There's nothing like wrong with it to a point. But you also have to be aware of like the people that you're doing it to. You know, if like Lake Placid, I was expecting to finish in like 11:30, 11:45, and I was off by like an hour. So complaining to someone who crossed the finish line, worked their ass off, and squeaked just under the clock would be really rude, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like woe is me. But yeah, but no, like recovery. You've got the mental recovery, which I think is what we're both talking about. But then like physically, like listening to your body. But I'm curious, like I love expos at races.
You
Like
like
whether
shopping, you like buying
well,
things.
well, I do. That's not new and it's not a secret. But like whether it's Ironman, Disney, New York Marathon, whatever. I love the expos, talking to the most of the vendors. Like I'm not a big like talk to salespeople person, but like I like talking to the vendors themselves, right? But like you could like go broke at these places, and like half of what's being sold is like recovery stuff, whether it's ice baths or like the squeezy pants or, concussion
Theraguns.
guns.
I was going to say.
Yeah, yeah. And, it's like there's the big brands, then there's the brands that are trying to enter an already crowded market,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. And, it's like, I'm so curious. You're like me, you probably have like 10 of everything that you don't need.
I've got better.
But yeah, after a while you get better with it. But what is your go-to recovery product?
I have a few.
Mm-hmm.
I have a few. And I think the older, the wiser we get, the more wisdom we exercise. And that's not all the time. But for the most part, it's just being,
Yeah, we're capable of exercising better decisions. That doesn't
it's,
mean we
it's
do
just,
exercise it.
yeah, it's just about being diligent and knowing what works
Mhm.
for me in terms of like icing, and if there's any areas that I struggle with that I'm aware of. Getting I'm old school with regards to an ice belt and the power of that and how that really helps me out. And that's something that I'm getting better not at neglecting, because it just it sets me up to recover the way I
Mhm.
should. And then again, like just being super diligent with my nutrition and my hydration, I think that plays a huge role. Being super intentional with quality products. I think there's a lot of garbage,
Mhm.
but there's also a
Yeah.
lot of good stuff. And I think it's about finding what works for you, trial and error, just with regards to
Yeah, the problem is like trial and error is expensive.
it is. But again, there's wisdom, and you have people at your disposal that can speak into like what works for them. It's not a one size fits all.
Mhm.
But I think being diligent with and being intentional, I think, is ultimately what helps me. And I
So,
found a lot of the stuff that's shiny, and
yeah,
there's a lot of gimmicks, and I think we need to be careful of
there is a lot
falling
of gimmicks.
prey to that. But I think with regards to keep it simple, don't try too much, and again, just listen to your body, and then go
So,
with go with what works.
I have four things. One is I use it every day. Yale standard foam roller.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Like if you don't have a foam roller, go out and get one.
Yeah.
They're $20, $30. Probably you could probably find one for $10. And I know there's like the fancy ones that vibrate and whatever, but
I've
like
seen those, the balls and all of
yeah,
those things.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I have one and I use it. Sometimes it's nice, but the Yale standard orange, mine's pink, but foam roller is like on the IT band. the hamstring, the quad, the calf. Oh man, nothing works out, the muscles faster than that. You know, PT told me once, they're like, if it hurts, do it some more.
Yeah.
They're like, if it hurts, it means that things aren't the way they should be, and
Yeah.
keep doing it.
Yeah.
Because, over time, you do it enough, it'll stop hurting.
Yeah, like your glutes post race, doesn't matter whether you're running, riding, like your
Yeah,
glutes are going to be smashed. Like
but
there's going to be discomfort, but
yeah,
you have to address the source to
and
feel better.
if your glutes don't hurt when you're done, then you're doing it wrong.
That's
But there's this company, I think they're California based, but I'm not positive, called Roll Recovery. I don't know if you heard about it. They make this thing that looks like a giant C-clamp, and it's got these two rollers on it that you can swap out different types. There's two. One, you can adjust the tension of the rollers on it because there's like some springs. And the first time I looked at it, I was like, oh, that's stupid. Like, who's going to buy that? Now I own two.
you know, too. There you
Now
go.
I own two. One that I keep in my car at all times. It's
Okay.
in the front of my car at all times. And it is my most used recovery tool.
Wow. Okay.
It's like having a foam roller that you don't need to lay down on the ground to use.
Mine is my massage gun. My massage gun is like my Swiss Army knife.
You see, I have a bunch of them, and my son uses it. He gets a lot of value. I don't. It doesn't do that much for me. I just find it like sometimes I use it, but it's like kind of annoying too.
Well, we've all got our formulas, right?
But the thing that I thought was like gimmicky, and it's like love it. I think all the companies have one now, like the heated heads for the percussion guns.
Yeah.
Oh my god! If you got like a knot in your IT band,
You see?
having the heat on it
Yeah.
helps so much.
Well, there you go.
And the squeezy pants.
Well, my ice belt, there's a
I
recent
never tried that.
ice belt. Oh man.
Oh, I love the I mean, I have the Normatec ones, but Therabody makes them. A bunch of other companies make them. Go to Amazon, I'm sure you can find it.
Go to your social account. You'll see Jill.
Yeah,
It's a race tradition.
I especially like marathon, endurance race, multi-day events, the Normatecs, the squeezy pants, space legs, I've heard them called.
You've got to have a separate suitcase for all your bag of tricks.
Actually, it's funny. So, like, the point 3 backpacks.
Oh yeah.
So the point 3 backpacks, I can fit the Normatec with the pump, my foam roller, my percussion gun, and the R8 from Roll Recovery.
This is what makes endurance sports expensive, because it's not just the gear that you need to race.
Yeah.
It's everything outside of that. Not so?
Yeah. Well,
I
you
mean,
got
if
to
we're
invest in your
honest,
recovery. Well,
for sure.
yeah, there's one other piece of kit that I bring with me, but yeah, like that one bag fits everything, and we don't bring it everywhere. It's like what we choose to bring, what I choose to bring. It depends on like what the race is. Like when I go down to Disney to do their like 5, 10 half weekends, we don't bring the most of it's just a foam roller for that. A yoga strap.
Easy to
Oh my,
travel with. Yeah.
easy to travel. It takes up no space, and you can get such great stretches with that. Like
It's a
I
good
may suck
shout.
at yoga, but like that yoga strap, I can use like a champ.
Yeah. Good shout.
Yeah. But yeah, no, the Meg Drito was on the podcast a couple months ago, and she's great because on her socials, every once in a while you see a post where she posts up like her schedule, and with the caption of like, invest as much in recovery as you did in training.
100%.
Recover as hard as you trained. And I think
100%.
it's true.
So true.
All right, where do you want to go? I think
I want to talk about something that's very close to both your and my heart with regards to the value of training with others.
do tell.
Obviously, that's something that you pride yourself in, obviously as a coach, but also with regards to the fact that there's a bigger piece to the puzzle there with regards to your support crew. And Jill, something that's like very close to my heart is that there's this misconception that triathlon is an individual sport. I beg to differ.
I mean, the rules do enforce that.
Yes, but it's no different to a race car. Every race car has a crew.
Absolutely.
And triathlon is no different. You show up with John, your incredible Sherpa, your family, your coach, your friends, the community you train with.
Let's be clear. My family is unwilling participants.
Well, I've got some photographs from Lake Placid that I took, and I could say otherwise, because
okay,
them being there and you having them there, whether willing or not, the impact that has on you and your race is huge. I'm no different. To have my son running alongside the bank when dad's swimming.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I feel like I've got a jetpack strapped to my back. They are just, that medal is way bigger deal for him than it is for me.
Yeah.
And that is where I say, like, community. And I think it's safe to say that there's a lot of folks who have become a little disconnected with regards to the value of community and the importance.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that needs to be reevaluated. The importance thereof, just in terms of the sport, it's super, 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 super important.
It is. And like when we talk about training with others, so I'm a master swim coach. So, I coach with a local, outfit, French Creek Racing, with their masters crew a couple times a week. And, if you think, it is an individual sport on the day of the competition, but motivationally, training with other people is so great from a motivation perspective. And it's like showing up is the hardest part. But then once you show up, it's so easy. If you're doing it alone, you got your workout. It's so easy to just like put in the bare minimum effort and call it a day.
Well, Jill, you've really touched on something, because there's a motivational piece, but more than that, there's a word that people struggle with, and that's called accountability.
Yeah.
Accountability is huge. It's easy to let yourself down. But when I know, like, I committed to riding with Jill, and Jill's now waiting. She's waiting for me. She's relying on me to be there.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to, like, let's just say it's an open water swim, and Jill has now banked on me showing up. There's a huge integrity part at play. But if Jill has banked on me spending time, if I'm an experienced swimmer and Jill needs me by her side to help her settle her nerves, to get familiar, and she's relying on me showing up, and I don't show up, not only does that impact me, but that's a disservice, and it directly impacts her. So accountability, training with others and being in a group environment, accountability is huge.
Yeah. We talk about online a lot about accountability partners, but when you are a member of a group, it's real. And we also push each other. So this morning, I was coaching at the Upper Marion pool, which is a 50-meter. So it's a long course. And, I put this training plan together last night from scratch, which I don't do a lot of. Usually I'm like adapting other things. And, US Master Swim is great for, giving like baseline. And this one, I'm like, I had a specific objective I was trying to accomplish, and I couldn't find anything that fit the bill. So, I had to put something together from scratch. And it was interesting to watch. So there's 3 lanes. Normally there's 6 in, 25-yard or 25-meter that I deal with. But, in this one, there's 3. It's a weekday, not as many people show up. And so you end up having skills that normally aren't grouped together. So there's a wider range of people in each lane.
Mm.
For the fastest lane, I had originally scoped it out for like 4,700 meters and ended up peeling it back to 4,200, because you never really know who's going to show up. And people don't feel that great about themselves when time's up and they haven't finished the plan. Right? Well, the paces I had put in there were a bit vague, intentionally. I'm like, do 200, 175 as easy, 25 sprint. And I said to the guys, I'm like, zone 2, the first 175, and then zone 6, 5, 6, the last 25. I was trying to get like that energy activation going on tired body. And they wouldn't you know, these guys started competing with each other. Yeah. Yeah. So those 175s that I would have expected from that crew to be done at like 150 to 2 minute pace were suddenly being done at like 130, 125. Then, that sprint though, like where do you go from there? How do you sprint? Right. So ignore the fact that they didn't get the objective of the workout quite to heart. They were all pushing each other. And like the slowest guy in the lane was now doing what the fastest guy in the lane would normally have.
There you go.
And so it pulls us all up.
That 100%. And it's like this, your tribe, how people say, find your tribe, find your people, because let's face it, life happens, right? Like there are twists and turns and eventualities and things that happen. And that is where your ability to seek emotional support, tap into some mental assistance if you've hit a low, or you're dealing with some trauma in your life or something, you being able to just show up and rely on the group at large just to carry you. What an incredible spot to be in, where you can show up even if the tank is empty, and you can be reliant on the community to help fill that tank, to build you back up, to get you back on your feet. And that is why I take it so seriously, and that is why it's such a big deal to me.
Yeah, there's a lot of cycling groups around, some more formal than others. I'm in a number of these. There's one that is really ad hoc that I love. They ride at a pretty reasonable pace for a group that's generally not training for a race, and still within the group, like various skill levels. But I love the texts that come, usually around like 9 o'clock at night, like, who's riding tomorrow? And then the next text is, what are you thinking? How many hours? How many miles? How many?
That's where they're deciding, do I show up?
Yeah.
Jill's doing this ride, and everybody's like, catch you next week.
Well, it's funny. The ones that I organize that are like, because when I have like long rides, I'll invite others. Like I'll put the invite out there, but I'll be specific too. I'm like, hey, I have 80 miles, 4 hours, whatever, and I'm trying to achieve this pace or this. Like, I know what my power output should be, but I try to translate it, more into like, watts per kilogram, which everyone should be able to relate to. And everyone's like, yeah, I'll do it. And then the morning of, I'll get like me and one other.
Yeah, it's like, what happened to you? Oh my gosh,
Like people slowly are like, wait, you want to start at what time?
Yeah.
On a Saturday? No.
Yeah.
And or like, I don't really want to do 6,000 feet of elevation or whatever.
You know what, the one thing I want to say, Jill, especially when it comes to this topic, because this is applicable and very relevant, not only to training, but very much so relevant on race day. And I think you of all people understand why I say this. But when you're going through a difficult spot, or you're struggling, and you show up, whether it's just your presence, but you even if your tank is feeling empty, you encourage somebody else, and you love on somebody else, the impact that has can literally be life-changing.
Absolutely. I mean, you've become part of my support crew over the last year or so. And there's a few others but this time last year I had, some life events. I was pretty low. And, it's the crew that I ride with 3-4 times a week, family that got me through. And, I think having that support crew is amazing. whether it's, work, family, training, whatever, like having people that you can just rely on to not do anything other than tell you that life goes on.
Yeah. The crazy thing is, what happens is when you're doing well and there's success, it's easy for people to all of a sudden be in your corner. But when the chips are down and things aren't going according to plan or not going swimmingly, let's just say,
Yeah.
then you're able to realize who's really in your corner.
But that's what I love about this community is like when you start training seriously, you start making friends that are also doing the same kinds of things. And I've been involved with sports where everyone is so cutthroat that no one is, helping each other. And, these sports, running included, which is, a bigger sport, but it's like, is it really? More people do it. Like the communities are pretty good. They just they help each other out.
Yeah, I think that's my biggest encouragement to everybody is like less self, more of helping others,
Mhm.
and you will reap the reward. When you become less focused on self, some of my fondest memories and achievements that I've been a part of, not receiving, have been so gratifying and so fulfilling. Being there for others, good, seeing success and getting the desired result, but more importantly, being there when that result is not achieved or things don't go according to
Yeah, I
plan.
was gonna say in your former role, you probably saw a lot of people who had the best of intentions, but for whatever reason didn't quite achieve what they were trying to do.
Yeah, I
And that
think,
that can be like you've put all the I mean, we started this, episode talking about how like have the right goals and have the right training plan and give yourself enough time. But if you do all that, success is not guaranteed. Your probability of success is improved, but you can still be on. I mean, like my experience, like yeah, I still crossed the finish line. Had a good time, finished in the top 20% of my age group, but it wasn't my goal, and I was pretty upset about that. But like, imagine if like that bonk had prevented me from crossing the finish line.
oh yeah,
Like, that would have been devastating, and with all the training that goes into it, not to mention the expense, right? The time away from family, the it's not just race registrations, but hotels and time away from work and travel expense. And, let's face it, when you're traveling to places, to tourist destinations, the food's not cheap either.
no,
But, in that moment, the only thing that matters is you put all that expense and energy and effort into it and you didn't get it done. And I know a lot of people that have had that happen and it's devastating and it needs to be mourned, but it can take a long time to get over.
and that's the importance of having people in your corner where you're in a spot to offer some words of encouragement, to just give a hug.
Yeah.
It goes a long way. And again, in my former role, I've seen very successful businessmen and women at the top of their game. And trust me, made of flesh and bones. And even those who are really good still hurt deeply. And even those who are super successful also struggle with headspace and emotion. And it's not foreign. And at the end of the day, if you can be there, even if it's just presence, or
Mhm.
even if it's just tough spot on the run and they happen to look up and you say something and it's like, I needed that.
So it strikes me that I think this episode has unintentionally become about community because everything we've talked about centers on the importance of being involved in the community of your chosen sport, whatever it is, and the importance of having the right support crew around you, your family, spouse, friends, social groups.
And more so, Jill, about making an impact and making your presence felt.
Yeah.
It's huge.
It's been a great conversation. Troy, I miss having you on the show. Hopefully, we get you on more
For sure.
than once every 90 days. And for our listeners, I hope this was useful. I hope this was inspiring. And more importantly, I hope it inspired you to think about how you're approaching things and maybe find one thing to do differently. And that said, thank you very much for listening. As always, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast and stay tuned for next week of the Be Fierce and Try podcast. All right. Take care, everyone.